Hey y'all, I'm here to talk to you today about what makes people call Missouri prisons Missery. So, what gives this state this nickname, and what factors contribute to this condition and this phenomenon? So, just really quickly, the video is going to be broken down into an overview. So, broadly looking at Missouri and what type of conditions are there across the prison, statistics, and then we're going to be looking at specific instances and submissions from incarcerated subscribers. And then it's going to end by looking forward and trying to end on a bit of a hopeful note because it is kind of bleak to just look at all of this. But it is really important to be educated on this because that's the whole point. We want to learn and be able to amplify these voices. So, first, let's start with Missouri conditions. So, Missouri Department of Corrections statistics. So, the most recent ones, which are 2023, the statistics and information come from the Prison Policy Initiative, which there's the link right there. And then Missouri has an incarceration rate of 735 per 100,000 people, which is insane, which includes prisons, jails, immigration detention, juvenile justice facilities, which means that it locks up a higher percentage of its people than any democracy on earth. And just to help you visualize that, on the upper left here is a graphic for that. And you could see even just in the United States, like it's still just a massive incarceration rate in Missouri alone. And then in the lower right, you can see this pie chart breakdown of how many Missouri residents are locked up and where, so which types of facilities. And then moving on, there's staffing. So we just looked at this, we saw how many people are in these prisons, and not only that, just the high incarceration rate, but the fact that it's only been increasing over the last 40 years and it's only continuing to increase. So it's not an issue that's leveling out or plateauing, it's just continuing to get worse. So that was the inmate side of it. And now here is staffing. So there's correction staffing shortages, which are persisting. So there are years long struggles with understaffing, and it's left incarcerated populations underserved. And members of Missouri's incarcerated population have said that this shortage has eroded crucial aspects of life in prison. This came from the News Tribune, which was a really helpful resource. There were a lot of actual quotes from inmates and different corrections officers, but these crucial aspects, they're talking about things that would be helpful for rehabilitation. So things like religious commitments, classes and programming, stuff in that vein, even just free time, like time where you would get to socialize and try and reintegrate and connect with other people that you're with in there. It's just all of that's being cut down. So here is just not really a timeline, kind of linear, problems that are piling up and how they can all just have an effect on each other, and how it's just, I wouldn't say it's cyclical, but it almost is, because just this leads to this and this leads to this. So first, if Missouri has incredibly high incarceration rates, then there's also that kind of ties with the long-time struggle with understaffing, because understaffing leads to more lockdowns and loss of activities, which, as I mentioned earlier, there's that shorter rec time and cut downs on non-emergency medical access, which is huge. Then there's loss of stability and routine due to all the cancellations and the different loss of activities. And then because of this, that leads to more tension and less time for rehabilitation, in quotation marks. And then this tension is one of the things that is causing understaffing, because the officers are citing excessive overtime and dangerous conditions and frustration as reasons for leaving. So it just kind of snowballs. And then all of these add to the bad reputation that the Missouri Department of Corrections currently has. And then aside from the understaffing and overcrowding, here's just a few more exacerbating factors that I feel like give a good picture of some of the issues that they're facing in these facilities. So people in Missouri prisons earn as little as 5 cents an hour for their work. And also a quarter of positions were empty in MDOC last year, or Missouri Doc last year. And Missouri prisons can even charge families up to a 20% fee to transfer money to an incarcerated loved one. And also, this last point still ties in with the overcrowding and the high incarceration rate. Missouri is one of the 13 states that didn't implement any policies to accelerate releases, promote medical parole or compassionate release, or hasten releases for people incarcerated on minor offenses during the COVID-19 pandemic. So all of these kind of snowball and they just pile onto each other to create a unique blend that's really giving Missouri the chance to live up to its misery name. And next we have this little link page with all of the places where the statistics came from and some of the graphics. So you could pause here if you want to go check these out because they were really, really helpful. And they paint like a really good picture of the issue that's going on. And next, moving into stories from subscribers. So these are people who wrote in to Sawari Media, and this first one is a hunger strike which came from South Central Correctional Center. And I wanted to highlight here, so he's talking about his tablet was taken away and he went on a hunger strike to get it back because this tablet was really important for him in connecting with his loved ones, communicating better, and he said it brought him closer to others who he hasn't spoken to in a while. And he went on the strike and they said they would give him his tablet back, and then he broke the hunger strike and they never gave it back, so he wanted to restart it again. And then he talked about being placed in ADSEG, which is the hole, and then being placed in even being threatened to move to a different facility, and he's being targeted by prison staff just because of the voice that he has around other people that are in there. So I thought that was an interesting way to start it, just to give you like this specific instance. He's having a lot of trouble in this correctional center. And then next, this person wrote in facing about harassment from staff. So Western Missouri Correctional Center, he's writing that he's been harassed by the food service staff here for over a year now, and the grievances that he files stop the harassment only temporarily. And he even talks about at the end that he wrote to the director of the Missouri Department of Corrections, and still it wasn't ever permanently stopped. So this point still, as we're going through these, keep in mind the overview, the context we just looked at. So there's still those tensions that were one of the problems that piled up, and you can see how it's really all just connected. Next is this person was denied parole, which is still contributing to the overcrowding and the amount of people there. So he wrote that the judge sentenced him to serve 85% of his 20 years, but the parole board is making him serve 99% of his time. And towards the end, he even talks about corruption within the board itself, talking about how in 2016, some board members were terminated because they had a point system and word game in place. If they could make offenders say a word twice, they received 2 points, unbeknownst to the offenders, obviously, which is absolutely insane because he talks about even they're playing with people's lives like ants. And this came from the Western Reception Diagnostic and Correctional Center. And then next, this is about a Missouri mailroom issue. And I specifically highlighted this one because on the right, you can see in the letter he talks about they were helpful, or the letters that he received, the information that he receives was helpful to him and others here in Missery, as they're held captive by the state. And then towards the end, you could see he wrote, if you and your team create a 2021 calendar, I would most definitely love for you to send me one if you can. And then on the left, you can see this mail rejection is about the calendar. They weren't allowed to have the calendar. So I just thought that was a good juxtaposition to have. And then a final note, I thought just to end on, I thought this person really captured it really well. He writes, why is the Missouri Department of Corrections promoting, provoking, and inciting animosity and morale issues between staff and incarcerated citizens? And he goes on to say, South Central Correctional Center is violating our basic principles, and he cites things such as indefinite solitary confinement, prolonged solitary confinement, and placement of prisons in cells that are constantly illuminated for 24 hours daily. So all of these things, you just see there's the understaffing that causes the tensions, and then there's cut downs that, like, everything is just contributing to these tensions. So it's just some of these little things that are really not even unique to Missouri itself, but just this blend that's giving Missouri this misery persona, or like, and then let's see. Oh, shoot. I was having trouble with that one. So moving on from that. So that was stories from subscribers. And now just, I guess, a way to wrap up and like look forward with hope. Because that is a bleak condition. Like, it's rough to listen to. It's hard because you really feel for these people. But the important thing is that we're educating ourselves and trying to amplify their voices, especially when the system is trying to stop these people from having an impact and making a change in their lives or situations. And I thought a really, really great note to end on would be artwork that came out of a Missouri prison, just to show that even in like these harsh conditions, there can still be creativity and beauty that blossoms. And it's a pencil drawing from Missouri. And I just thought it was a really nice way to wrap everything up. And then the last thing is just different links for more of this content. There's also a separate video on artwork and how like artwork in prison can help people deal with their conditions. That's also on there. And I told you about the mailroom video. So if you enjoyed this, there's more to look at. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this was informative, and have a great day.